Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about Richard Stone, the guy who basically gave us the blueprint to see our economies for the very first time. Before him, we were pretty much in the dark. Let's start with a really big question, one that shapes just about everything from the news you watch to major government policies. We throw around terms like GDP and economic growth all the time, right? But where do those numbers actually come from? And here's the thing that might blow your mind. For most of history, we just couldn't. Not really. Economists and governments were basically trying to steer these massive, complex national economies while flying completely blind. No dashboard, no GPS, not even a good map. Seriously, think about a doctor trying to figure out what's wrong with a patient but without a thermometer or a stethoscope or a blood pressure cuff. That's pretty much what economics was like. There was just no single, coherent picture of a nation's financial health. Now, don't get me wrong, governments were collecting some numbers, on things like trade or jobs or how much stuff factories were making, but it was all just a jumble of disconnected puzzle pieces. There was no real way to see how they all fit together, how production in a factory actually fueled someone's paycheck, or how that paycheck then drove spending across the whole system. But then, a couple of massive global crises hit, and suddenly, having that clear picture wasn't just a nice idea, it was an absolute necessity. So first, you have the Great Depression, which made it painfully obvious that nobody, and I mean nobody, truly understood the scale of the economic collapse. Then, World War II kicks off, and understanding the economy becomes a matter of national survival. The British government, with the legendary economist John Maynard Keynes helping to call the shots, had one critical question. What can our economy actually produce for the war? And to figure that out, they turned to a man named Richard Stone. As Richard Stone started to systematically organize this huge flood of data, Keynes saw what was happening. He realized they were entering a totally new era, where economics wasn't just a bunch of abstract theories anymore. For the first time, it was becoming a tangible, measurable system you could actually analyze. So what was Stone's big idea? What made it so revolutionary? Well, he didn't just collect stats. He designed this incredibly elegant, architectural blueprint for the entire economy. He called it the System of National Accounts, or SNA for short. And this was so much more than another list of numbers. It was a logical, coherent framework, a structure that would eventually become the gold standard for organizing economic data all around the world. At the very heart of it all is this simple but unbelievably powerful equation. Now, you might recognize this. It's the formula for gross domestic product, or GDP. In one clean line of algebra, it captures the entire economic output of a nation. And this system breaks it down so neatly. Y is the total national income, and it's made up of C for consumption, that's you and me buying stuff. I is for investment, which is businesses spending money. G is government spending, and that last bit, XXM, is just net exports, so everything we sell to other countries minus what we buy from them. Every single dollar, pound, or yen spent in an economy fits into one of these buckets. But here's the real stroke of genius, something Stone borrowed from business accounting, the double entry system. The idea is simple but profound. Every single transaction gets counted twice. When you buy a cup of coffee, your spending is the coffee shop's income. This simple rule guarantees that the whole system is perfectly consistent. It lets us trace the flow of money as it moves in a circle between all of us, businesses, and the government. Okay, so this wasn't just some neat academic exercise for tidying up spreadsheets. This was the birth of a powerful new tool that would completely change how governments work. This diagram from Stone himself shows his vision perfectly. You see, his system provided the organized, reliable facts. That's the bedrock, the absolute foundation. Because without a shared, agreed-upon set of facts about what the economy is actually doing, any theory is just, guesswork. And once you have that solid factual base, then economists can build testable theories and create data-driven models. And only after all that can governments design effective policy, like a tax cut or a big infrastructure plan, with a much, much clearer idea of what the impact might be on the whole system. So here's the big takeaway. All these concepts that used to be just abstract ideas, like economic growth or business cycles, suddenly became things you could actually measure, track, and even try to manage. Stone basically built the entire statistical infrastructure for modern macroeconomics from the ground up. Now, when you have a blueprint that's this powerful and this useful, it's not going to stay a secret in Britain for very long. Right after the war, Stone took his work to the brand new United Nations, and he led the charge to make his system of national accounts the international standard. And this move made something possible that we all completely take for granted today, being able to directly and reliably compare the economies of different countries. Think about it. He created a common statistical language for the entire world. Before Stone, trying to compare the US economy to the German economy was, a classic case of apples and oranges. It was mostly just speculation. But after Stone, organizations like the World Bank and the UN finally had a consistent framework to analyze global trade, development, and economic trends. And for all of this foundational, quiet, but world-changing work, Richard Stone was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1984. The Nobel Committee's reason says it all. He greatly improved the basis for empirical economic analysis. Or, to put it simply, he gave all of us the map. Stone's incredible achievement proves a really important point. What we decide to measure is what shapes how we see the world, and that, in turn, shapes the policies we create. Which leaves us with a pretty crucial question for our own time. As our economies face totally new challenges in the 21st century, things like climate change or AI, what new maps, what new blueprints do we need to build now?